Oh hi. Switzerland, the state in Central Europe, the federal republic consisting of 26 cantons with the federal authorities in Bern. Switzerland is located on a joint of Western, Central and Southern Europe, has no outlet to the sea and borders on Italy in the south, France in the west, Germany, both Austria and Liechtenstein in the east in the north. The country is geographically divided between the Alps, the Swiss Plateau and Jura, having captured the total area of 41285 km. While the Alps occupy the most part of the territory, the population of Switzerland, numbering about 8.5 million people, is generally concentrated on the plateau, where the largest cities, including two global, Zurich and Geneva, are located. Creation of the Swiss Union belongs to the late medieval period and became result of a number of military progress against Austria and Burgundy. Independence of Switzerland of the Sacred Roman Empire was formally recognized at the conclusion of the Westphalian World in 1648. Since the Reformation of the 16th century, Switzerland adhered to policy of the armed neutrality. She didn't wage external wars since 1815 and didn't enter the Union till 2002. Nevertheless, she pursues active foreign policy for world peace. Switzerland, the homeland of the Red Cross, one of the oldest and most known humanitarian organizations in the world. The platform for the numerous international organizations, including the second largest office of the Union. The country is one of founders of the European Free Trade Association, but doesn't enter the European Union, the European Economic Area or the Eurozone. However, participates in the Schengen area and the European Uniform Market through bilateral contracts. Switzerland is at the intersection of the German and Romance Europe and has four main language and cultural regions: German, French, Italian and Romansh. Though most of the population, German-speaking, Swiss national consciousness originates in the general historical experience, the general values. Federalism and direct democracy and Alpine symbolics. Because of the multilingualism, Switzerland is known under different names. Schweiz in German, Swiss, French, Svizzera, Italian, and Svizzera, Romansh. However, on the Swiss coins and brands, instead of four national languages is used the Latin name of the country, Confederatio Helvetica, which is often reduced to Helvetia. Switzerland, one of the most developed countries of the world, with the highest nominal wealth of adult population and the 8th largest GDP per capita. She takes the advanced places on a number of the international indicators, including economic competitiveness and human development. Zurich, Geneva and Basel were included in the top 10 cities of the world on quality of life. At the same time, Zurich took the second place. The name of the country goes back to the name of the canton of Schweiz, which was one of 3 cantons, founders of Confederation in 1291. In 970 the center of this canton is mentioned as Suwitz, in 1281 Switz. Schweiz. The name comes from other century, is mute. Sudan, root out. Since the 14th century by name this canton begins to call the state in general. Residents of the country called themselves by Eidenossen. Confederates. And only since the end of the 15th century the self-named Schweizer began to become current. That is Swisses. from the name of the country Schweiz, the name of its inhabitants Swisses, and from him the Russian name of the country of Switzerland, the country of Swisses, is formed. Switzerland, the Federal Republic consisting of 20 cantons and 6 Palukantone. In the territory of Switzerland there are 2 enclaves. Basingen is a part of Germany and Campania d'Italy, in structure of Italy. Till 1848. Except the short period of the Helvetic Republic, Switzerland represented Confederation. Now it is actually Federation, however the word Confederation remains in the official name of the country. Each canton has the constitution and the legislation, however their action is limited to the federal constitution. Questions of war and peace, an external relationship, armies, the railroads, communication, monetary issue, the approval of the federal budget, etc. are under authority of the federal authorities.
Legislature, the two-chamber Federal Assembly consisting of National Council and Council of Cantons, and in legislative process both chambers are equal.
The National Council, 200 deputies, is elected by the population for 4 years on the system of proportional representation. Federal structure of Switzerland was enshrined in constitutions 1848, 1874 and 1999. In Council of Cantons of 46 deputies who are elected by the population, in the majority of cantons on the majority system of relative majority in 22 mandatory and 6 single candidate districts, that is on 2 persons from each canton and on 1 from a Palukantone for 4 years. In some cantons, for 3 years. The executive body, Federal Council, consisting of 7 dicks, each of which heads one of the ministries of federal administration. 2 of members of Federal Council serially fulfill duties of the President of Confederation and the Vice President respectively. For a management of the office of Federal Council there is the Chancellor's position, who has advisory capacity in Council and formally isn't its part. Members of Federal Council and the Chancellor are elected at a joint meeting of both chambers of Parliament for all term of his powers, that is for 4 years. Every year the Parliament appoints the President and the Vice President of Confederation from among members of Council, without the right of reassignment to the next year. In practice members of Federal Council practically always are re-elected, so its structure can remain invariable within several terms of office of Parliament, and by tradition the post of the President is held serially by all members of Council. All laws adopted by Parliament can be approved or rejected on a national optional referendum. Direct democracy, for which holding, after adoption of law, in 100-day time it is necessary to collect at least 50,000 signatures. Changes of the Constitution and the accession to the international organizations demand confirmation on a national obligatory referendum. All citizens of the country who reached 18-year age have voting rights.
The basic principles of the Swiss Confederation were underlain in 1291.
Until the end of the 18th century in the country there were no central public authorities, but all union cathedrals were periodically convoked. Reichssitzung. In 1798 Switzerland was occupied by France and the constitution on a sample French was adopted. In 1803, within the Act of Mediation, Napoleon returned to Switzerland independence. The first federal constitution adopted in 1848 provided creation of two-chamber federal parliament. In 1874, the constitution providing introduction of institute of referenda was adopted. In 1999, a new, thoroughly processed edition of this constitution was accepted.
Only in 1971, according to result of a national referendum of the woman, acquired suffrage. However, his introduction in all cantons was complete only in 1990.
Thus, Switzerland became the last European state which balanced women in electoral rights with men. Right. The Swiss People's Party. Schweizerische Volkspartei. CV. National and Conservative, right. Lega dei Ticinici is right. Isolationist. The Federal Democratic Union of Switzerland, right Christian. The Conservative Democratic People's Party of Switzerland, conservative. The Christian Democratic People's Party of Switzerland. Christlich-Demokratische Volkspartei der Schweiz. KV. Moderate Christian Democrat. The Evangelic People's Party of Switzerland, social and conservative. The Free Democratic Party of Switzerland. Freisinnig Demokratische Partei der Schweiz. NDD. Liberal. The Green Liberal Party of Switzerland, Ecologische Liberal. Social Democratic Party of Switzerland. Sozialdemokratische Partei der Schweiz. SB. Socialist. Christian Social Party of Switzerland, Christian and Socialist. The Green Party of Switzerland. Grün Partei der Schweiz. GPS. Ekologistski. Alternative Left, left-wing socialist. The Labour Party of Switzerland. Partei der Arbeit der Schweiz. P8. Communistic. Solidaritzist Communistic, Trotskyist Anticapitalist. The largest federal trade union association of the country, merging of the Swiss labor unions. Schweizerischer Gewerksbund. In the industry plan consists of industrial trade unions, in the territorial plan of cantonal trade union associations. Kantonafsbund. Cantonal trade union associations from regional trade union associations. Regionexbund. Regional trade union associations from local trade union associations. Lokalgeverbund. The supreme body, the Trade Union Congress. Gewerkskongress. Between the Trade Union Congresses, Board of Trade Union Association. The Youth Organization, Trade Union Youth. Gewerkjugend. The highest judicial authority, Federal Court. Bundesgericht, Tribunal Federal. Courts of the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Courts. Obergericht. In Geneva, Chamber of Justice. Justiz, Cour de Justice. In Baselstadt, Courts of Appeal. Appellationsgericht. Courts of First Instance, District Courts. Bezirksgericht. In Lucerne, Local Courts. Amtsgericht. In Jura, Courts of First Instance. Gericht Erster Instanz. In Obwalden, Nidwalden, Glarus, Schaffhausen, Zug, Appenzellasserhouden, Cantonal Courts. Kantonsgericht. In Street. Gollen District Courts. Kreisgericht. The lowest link of the judicial system, magistrates' courts. Friedensgericht. Exist not in all cantons. The highest judicial authority of administrative justice, Federal Administrative Court. Bundesverkehrs Tribunal Administrative Federal. Switzerland, the Federal Republic consisting of 26 cantons. 20 cantons. Canton. And 6 Ballungskanton. Landesteil. Cantons can be divided into districts. Bezirk. Districts on the cities and communities. Gemeinde. Some communities on urban areas. Stadtkreis. It is below the list of cantons, and many cities of Switzerland have different names depending on language. Each canton has own constitution and the legislation. Legislature of cantons, cantonal councils. Kantonsrat. Chosen by the population, executive bodies, ruling councils. Regierungsrat. Consisting of prime ministers. Regierungsratspresident. A Landemann. Landemann. Vice prime ministers. Regierungspräsident. A Landschaftsverwalter. Landstatthalter. And government advisors. Regierungsrat. Elected by cantonal councils. Legislature of Romance cantons, Grand Councils. Grand Conseil. Grand Consiglio. Executive bodies, the state councils. Conseil di Attet. Consiglio di Stato. Consisting of chairman of the state council. President du Conseil di Attet. Presidente del Consiglio di Stato. Deputy Chairman of the State Council. Vice President du Conseil di Attet. Vice Presidente del Consiglio di Stato. And State Councillors. Consigliere di Attet. Consiglio di Stato. The government in Appenzellerhoden differs in the special device. Legislature, Land Community. Landsmint. Into which all voters enter, executive body, the cantonal commission. Standeskommission. Stilstehender Landemann. Consisting of a ruling Landemann. Regierender Landemann. Helping and Pravitelny advisors. Regierungsrat. In districts which are headed by the prefect. Bezirkssammlung. Appointed by cantonal council. Representative bodies of the cities, communal councils. Gemeinderat. Chosen by the population executive, the city councils. Stadtrat. Consisting of city presidents. Stadtpräsident. And city advisors. Stadtrat. Elected by communal councils. Representative bodies of communities, communal meetings. Gemeindeversammlung. Consisting of all inhabitants of community, executive bodies of communities, the communal councils. Gemeinderat. Consisting of the communal president. Gemeindepräsident. And communal advisors. Gemeinderat. Elected by communal meetings. Switzerland, the country without outlet to the sea, which territory is divided into 3 natural regions. Mount Jura in the north, the Swiss Plateau in the center, and the Alps in the south, occupying 61% of all territory of Switzerland. The northern border partially passes across the Bodensee and Rhine, which begins in the center of the Swiss Alps and forms a part of eastern frontier. The western border passes across Mountains Jura, southern across the Italian Alps and Lake Geneva.
The plateau lies in the lowland, but his most part is located higher than 500 meters above sea level,
consisting of woody ridges up to 1600 m. The unfolded Mountains Jura were stretched on the territory of France and Germany. The highest point of Switzerland is in the Penninski Alps, Pic de Four, 4634 m. The lowest, the Lake Logomatshor, -193 m. In Switzerland there are 6% of reserves of fresh water of Europe. The largest rivers, Rhone, Rhine, limit the Arab Republic of Egypt. Switzerland is rich and well known for the lakes. The most attractive of them are located at the edges of the Swiss plateau: Geneva, 582.4 km. Verwolchko, 113.8 km. Tunsko, 48.4 km. In the south, Zurich, 88.4 km. In the east, Bilsko, 40 km. And Nevshatelskoye, 217.9 km. In the north, most of them has glacial origin. They were formed in times when large glaciers climbed down mountains on the Swiss plateau. To the south, from an axis of the Alps in the canton of Ticino, the lakes Logomatshor are located, 212.3 km. And Lugano, 48.8 km. About 25% of the territory of Switzerland are covered with the woods, not only in mountains, but also in valleys and on some plateaus. Wood is important raw materials and a source of fuel. In Switzerland there are practically no minerals. There are only large reserves of coal, a deposit of iron ores, small fields of graphite and talc.
The extraction of rock salt, which is conducted in upper courses of Rhone and across Rhine at border with Germany, covers needs of the country.
There are raw materials for building industry: sand, clay, stone.
Up to the middle of the 20th century, the main source of energy was coal, which after 1950 was gradually replaced with oil.
11.5% of energy are produced by means of water resources, 55% of the consumed electric power, at the expense of hydroelectric power stations.
In Switzerland, the continental climate typical for Central Europe, with considerable fluctuations depending on height above sea level, prevails. In the west of the country, influence of the Atlantic Ocean is big, in process of advance to the east, and in the southern mountainous areas the climate gains lines of continental.
Winters are cold. On the plateau and in valleys temperature reaches 0, and in mountainous areas 11 C and below. Average temperature in the summer in lowlands, plus 18-20 C, is slightly lower in mountains. In Geneva, average temperatures of July about 19 C, January about 3 C. In a year about 850 mm of rainfall drop out. Strong northern and southern winds. Annual level of rainfall in Zurich on the plateau is 1000 mm, and in Zenta more than 2000 mm. Special quality of East Alps is that about 65% of quantity of annual rainfall drop out in the form of snow. Quite often, even in May-June, at the height more than 1500 mm rainfall in the form of snow grain drops out. Some areas are constantly covered with an ice layer. The climate and landscape differ from the region to the region. It is possible to find both mosses and lichens inherent in the tundra, and palm trees and the mimosas characteristic of the coast of the Mediterranean Sea in Switzerland. The most part of the country occupy Alpi. In the south are Pannonskye Alpi, up to 46-34 m high Pic de Four, Lepentinskye Alpi, Ritiskye Alpi and the Bernina Array.
And front Reina Pannonskye and Lepentinskye Alpi are separated by deep longitudinal valleys of Upper Rhone from the Bernese Alps.
Mount Finsteraarhorn, height of 42-74 m. And the Blansky Alps forming the system of the ridges extended from the southwest on the northeast through the whole country. The peaked ridges put by mainly crystal breeds and strongly dismembered by an erosion prevail. The main passes: Great St. Bernard, Simplon, St. Gothard, Bernina,
are located higher than 2000 meters above sea level.
A large number of glaciers and glacial forms of a relief, total area of freezing -1950 km is characteristic of a landscape of mountain Switzerland. All in Switzerland there are about 140 large valley glaciers, the Aletschski Glacier and others. There are also Karavi and trailing glaciers. In the last decades, because of global warming of climate, there was a reduction of quantity and total area of the alpine glaciers. The city of Basel, Étaux Rouge, the capital of pharmaceutical industry of the country, to which share slightly less than 38% of world export of Switzerland fall. Switzerland, one of the most developed and rich countries of the world. Switzerland, the advanced industrial country with intensive, highly productive agriculture and almost total absence of any minerals, enters the top 10 of the countries of the world on the level of competitiveness of economy. The Swiss economy is closely connected with the outside world, first of all with EU countries. Commodity turnover of 80-85%. Production, cooperation and the foreign trade transactions. Through Switzerland, more than 50% of all freights from a northern part of Western Europe on the south and in the opposite direction go as transit goods. After noticeable growth in 1998-2000, national economy entered a recession strip. In 2002 DDD grew by 0.5% and was 417 billion Swiss francs. Inflation was on a mark of 0.6%. Unemployment rate reached 3.3%. About 4 million people, 57% of the population, from them are engaged in economy. In the industry -25.8%. Including in mechanical engineering -2.7%, in chemical industry -1.7%, in rural and forestry -4.1%. In services sector -70.1%. Including in trade -16.4%, in bank and insurance business -5%, in hotel and restaurant business -6.0%.
The policy of a neutrality in two world wars allowed the economy of Switzerland to avoid ruin.
In Switzerland there are four world's largest enterprises for purification of gold, processing 2/3 of his world production. Respectively, this country is the world's largest importer and the exporter of precious metal.
In 2014 his import made 23% and export -21% of a world turnover of $321 billion.
Import volume in 2018 was CHF 273.389 billion. Excepting precious metals, including products of chemical and pharmaceutical industry, 50.1 billion. Cars and electronics, 32.1 billion. Vehicles, 19.3 billion. Jewelry and jewelry, 16.0 billion. Metals, 15.9 billion. Tools and hours, 12.2 billion. Textiles, clothes and footwear, 7 billion. Food, 10.9 billion. Energy carriers, 9.5 billion. Synthetic materials and paper products, 8.5 billion.
Export volume in 2018 was CHF 303.886 billion, including
products of chemical and pharmaceutical industry, 104.4 billion. Tools and hours, 38.0 billion. Machines, equipment and electronics, 33.5 billion. Metals, 14.4 billion. Jewelry and jewelry, 11.6 billion. Food products, 9.0 billion. Synthetic materials and paper products, 5.2 billion. Vehicles, 5.0 billion. Textiles, clothes and footwear, 4.9 billion. Energy carriers, 2.8 billion. Advantages of the Swiss economy: highly skilled labor, reliable services sector. They developed branches of pharmaceutics, mechanical engineering and high-precision mechanics. Transnational concerns of chemical industry, pharmacology and banking sector. The bank secrecy attracts the foreign capital. The banking sector makes 9% of GDP. Innovations in the Massachusetts markets. Hours of Swatch, the concept of the smart cars. Weaknesses of the Swiss economy: limitation of resources and small area. In Switzerland there is no minimum wage, but the minimum wage rate was entered since 2017 in the cantons of Neuchâtel and Jura. The second highest in the world, CHF 20.
Euro 18.
53. In our about CHF 3600. Euro 3335.21. In a month. Since November 1, 2020 in the canton of Geneva. The highest in the world, CHF 23.
Euro 21.30.
In our Chef 4086. Euro 3785.47. In a month. And since January 1, 2021 in the canton of Ticino. The third highest in the world, Chef 19.75.
Euro 18.29.
In our about Chef 3500. Euro 3241.40. In a month. As of 2015, the average amount of compensation in Switzerland is Chef 62.57. Euro 54.85. 96 gross. And Chef 51.36. Euro 4,502.29 net. In a month. Several decades the Swiss Confederation was included into the list of offshore zones. In the country about 4,000 financial institutions, including a set of branches of foreign banks function. 35–40% of world property management and property of private and legal entities are the share of the Swiss banks. They have good reputation at clients thanks to a stable internal political situation, hard Swiss currency, respect for the principle of bank secrecy. The largest Swiss banks are UBS and Credit Suisse. Switzerland, being the large exporter of the capital, takes the fourth place in the world after the USA, Japan, Germany. Direct investments abroad make 29% of the Swiss DDD. An average value in the world about 8%.
75% of all Swiss investments go for the developed industries. Among developing countries, Latin America and Southeast Asia most attract the Swiss capital.
The share of Eastern Europe in the total amount of investments is insignificant. The fact that, in the mid-90s, Switzerland, from the legal point of view, was similar to offshore was specified by the Prosecutor General of the Russian Federation Yuri Skuratov, having noted that, tax benefits as offshores, Switzerland doesn't give. But there is a myth that the heavy-duty mystery of the Swiss banks is observed sacredly and is firm, and has to tell that in principle it corresponds to the truth. In general, this country, in fact, the same offshore, the prosecutor right there added.
On April 1, 1998 in Switzerland, the federal law on fight against money laundering in the financial sector, which allowed to lift a little the veil of a bank secrecy for identification of dirty money, came into force.
In 1815 the Vienna Congress accepted guarantees of a neutrality of Switzerland. Since then it wasn't involved in one war and its banks were never exposed to plunder. However, at Ludovic XVI, one of the Swiss bankers, Jacques Necker, was so authoritative that became the first person of financial department of France. Supporters of reliability of the Swiss banks claim that they, according to them, can't be ruined, as even if they also participate in risky financial transactions, these banks, according to their supporters, are in the country with stable legal, economic, financial, political system. Nevertheless, within first of all conflict of UBS Bank with tax authorities of the USA, the bank had to issue 4450 accounts of the American citizens suspected of evasion from taxes. However, the essence and a core of a bank secrecy. Lack of automatic issue of information on accounts of non-residents in the Swiss banks remained in inviolability.
In 2006 the cantonal bank carried out audit of unclaimed deposits and found the open account addressed to Vladimir Ulyanov, on whom only 13 francs minus 286 rubles lie.
Now there is a speech about adoption of law which will reduce the term of claiming of a contribution for owners of the sleeping assets to 50 years. And if after this term nobody sees the rights, banks liquidate means having transferred them to management of the Ministry of Finance of Switzerland. After the beginning of the global crisis, the Swiss bank secrecy appeared under blow. At the same time, between the largest Swiss bank UBS and the American Federal Tax Service of IRS, Internal Revenue Service, there was a conflict. At the beginning of 2009, Switzerland was at a great disadvantage. The whole world was up in arms against it, accusing of unfair competition due to cultivation in the territory of tax oases. Therefore the USA, without wishing to go, besides, a tiresome, legal way, energetically demanded issue of data to them, at first about 300, and then about the whole 52,000 accounts of the American citizens in UBS Bank suspected of evasion from taxes.
After the summit of Group of 20 in London in April 2009, the situation calmed down a little.
Switzerland adopted standards of OID in the sphere of rendering legal aid in the affairs connected with tax crimes. However, the United States Department of Justice continues to insist on the claims to UBS Bank, supporting IRS in her requirement to provide to tax United States authorities data at once about 52,000 accounts of Americans.
The court in Miami, which is engaged in this business, already rejected the argument of Switzerland and bank, specifying that business it completely corresponds to the right of the USA, which grants the right to obtain information from abroad. So this sort of the requirement does not in essence the new legal concept.
The bank has to bear responsibility for the acts, considers court.
UBS seeks to teach a course towards minimization of damage in this situation, having announced the readiness to find the mutually acceptable solution. At the same time, the bank once again emphasized that the civil suit of IRS's violation of the Swiss right in this connection, not courts, but the governments of both countries in a bilateral format, have to solve this problem. Besides, the bank demands from the American side to specify number of accounts, information on which is required to be provided, as at the moment their many owners voluntarily transferred to IRS all information on the accounts to UBS.
At the same time, Swiss financial giant sharply limits and reduces the volume of so-called cross-border transactions. Cross-border. Since July 1, 2009, to the American clients of bank who didn't react to the plan of UBS for an exit from such transactions, it is denied access to own accounts. And this plan offered them to transfer their states to the account specified by the client at the American financial institution, or to get the refund in the form of a check. On decision-making, 45 days were allotted to clients from the USA. In both cases, clients had to recognize that information on these transactions will be transferred to the American tax authorities. As a rule, it is about the big, earlier not declared sums. Such clients risk to receive at best the juicy account of tax surcharge, and in the worst, the legal claim. UBS recommends to risk and go for voluntary recognition in this case. As for actually IRS, until the end of September it suggests all deviators to use a penal tariff for avoidance of taxes with discount. A conflict cast a shadow and on a visit to the USA of the Minister of Economics of Switzerland, Doris Leuthard, in July 2009, taking into account that on July 13 in Miami full trial, IRS had to begin UBS. In the performance before members of the Swiss American Chamber of Commerce, SAC. On July 8, Doris Lloyd-Codd once again emphasized importance of commerce and industry contacts between the USA and Switzerland. At the same time, financial crisis which sources are in the USA substantially affected also Switzerland. In such situation it is necessary to keep at the same time again to return to financial stability. It was talked also of just agreed Swiss-American contract on avoidance of double taxation. D.
Lloyd-Codd said that the lack of the decision of a tax dispute between IRS and UBS can lead to the fact that chances of a positive vote of parliamentarians according to this document can be reduced considerably.
A new factor is also Lloyd-Codd's hint on the fact that Federal Council of Switzerland can, if it is necessary, on the basis of the extraordinary decree, simply to forbid UBS Bank to issue information on accounts. In the middle of August 2009 the solution was found.
The USA withdraws from court in Miami the claim mines UBS and undertakes not to resort more to such tools in the future.
Formally this claim remains kind of in force to avoid the expiration of an established period of prescription according to tax cases.
However, the latest in 370 days after signing of the reached agreement, this claim will disappear from the face of the earth once and for all.
The American Tax Department of IRS, Internal Revenue Service, will transfer to the address of the Swiss Tax Department. Eid. Stur-Verwaltung.
Being guided by the existing Swiss-American contract on avoidance of double taxation, the petition for rendering legal aid.
At the same time, the American tax specialists will proceed from absolutely certain set of criteria which will allow, being within the Swiss right, to identify the fact of commission of avoidance of taxes. Owners of accounts will have an opportunity to submit the appeal to one of the Swiss vessels. The former federal advisor, and nowadays the chief of UBS Casper Villiger, is confident that the agreement will work for achievement of the reliable future for bank. It works for the solution of one of the most difficult problems which the UBS Bank faced, it is said from his name in the special communique. He also expressed satisfaction with the fact that the agreement will work within the Swiss right and the existing Swiss-American contract on avoidance of double taxation. Now, according to Villiger, the bank will be able to restore the reputation in the opinion of clients, by solid services and the first-class service. The relevant agreement, thus, in the evening on August 19 was signed in Washington and right there came into force. According to the Swiss Bank Association, Die Schweizerische Bankvereinigung SBV, it can be quite enough details of the agreement. The most important that long process with an unevident outcome was succeeded to prevent. Now, having received legal definitions, the bank will be able to continue process of recovery from the crisis.
It is very important that the agreement is within the Swiss right. It in addition strengthens business reputation of Switzerland as world financial center, as foreign clients will be able and to expect predictability of the Swiss legal order further. In the industry, large combinations of transnational character, as a rule, the leading positions which are successfully sustaining the competition in the world market and taking on it dominate.
Nestlé concerns. Foodstuff, pharmaceutical and cosmetic products, baby food. Novartis and Hoffmann La Roche. Chemical and pharmaceutical products. Alias use. Aluminum. The Swedish Swiss ABB concern, ASEA Brown Boveri. Electrical equipment and turbine construction. Switzerland is often associated with our factory of the world. In a support on old traditions and a high commercial crop make ours and jewelry of the most prestigious brands here. Rolex, Chopard, Breguet, Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, etc. In Switzerland there are practically no minerals. Rock salt and building materials have industrial value. About 42% of the electric power in Switzerland are developed on the NPP, 50% for hydroelectric power station, another 8% for thermal power plant from the imported oil. Most hydroelectric power station is in the Alps where more than 40 artificial lakes, reservoirs are created. At the initiative of Green, construction of the new NPEPs is temporarily stopped. Until 2050 Switzerland completely will become neutral in relation to the nature. The Swiss transport system is debugged as ours. All 3212 km of the main ways of the public railroads belonging to the federal company SBCFFs are completely electrified. In mountains more than 600 tunnels are driven including Simplon. 19.8 km. In mountain regions funiculars and cableways work. Extent of roads about 71,000 km. An important role is played by the roads passing through mountain passes St. Gothard, Great St. Bernard and others. On October 27, 2008 in Lausanne, Switzerland's first subway -5.9 km, 14 stations was officially open, trains cope automatically, without driver. Before lines of the subway only partially passed underground, reminding more tram lines. The main international airports, Geneva, Zurich, Basel. Agriculture has pronounced livestock focus, with the emphasis on production of meat and milk products. Differs in high productivity and labor productivity. The prevalence of small-scale enterprises is characteristic. Swiss cheese is well known not 1 century in many countries of the world. In general, agriculture provides needs of the country for food for 56–57%.
Switzerland supports the foreign trade communications practically with all countries of the world. National economy substantially depends on foreign trade, both in import of raw materials and semi-finished products, and in export of products of the industry.
More than 50% of products textile, about 70% machine building, over 90% of chemical and pharmaceutical, 98% of the our industry go for export. %, of a foreign trade turnover of Switzerland are the share of the developed industrial countries. Our main partners are EU countries, over 3/4 exports and import. Among the largest foreign trade partners, Germany, France, the USA, Italy, Great Britain, the Benelux countries. Being the traditional country of tourism, Switzerland holds in this sphere strong positions in Europe. Existence of the developed tourist infrastructure, network iron and highways in combination with the picturesque nature and an advantageous geographical location provides inflow to the country of a significant amount of tourists, first of all Germans, Americans, Japanese, and in recent years also Russians, Indians, Chinese. 15% of national income arrive due to tourism. The Alps occupy 2/3 all territories of Switzerland and annually attract thousands of fans of outdoor activities to Switzerland. The highest point of the country is in the Penninski Alps and the Pic de Four, 4634 m, is called.
Also in Switzerland are the most mountainous in Europe the railway station Jungfraujoch at the height of 3454 m above sea level and the most mountainous brewery in Europe in Mansteina at the height of 1600 m.
The most known ski and recreational resorts of Switzerland: Davos, St. Moritz, Zermatt, Interlaken, Lakerbad. Switzerland is world-renowned. The private schools closed by boards and the universities.
Switzerland, the homeland of reformatory pedagogics, education is based on Maria Montessori, Jean Piaget and Rudolf Steiner's principles here and until now. Education level in the private sector quite high, thanks to excellent training of teachers and traditions of quality.
Once you also mention such aspects supplementing ideal conditions for training, stability, safety and prestige. All above mentioned factors attract a huge number of students and pupils from around the world. Besides specialized schools of hotel business, courses of foreign languages enjoy wide popularity. The programs calculated for any term usually yield excellent results and are carried out by native speakers with use of modern techniques. Private language schools usually offer a wide choice of places of training and various adapted language programs for adults, children and teenagers. Private general education institutions have special prestige. According to the International Research of Quality of Secondary Education, Switzerland for 10 years, 2000-2009, shows permanently higher rates of training of graduates of the schools. So, for example, in 2000, according to Monitoring of Assessment of Quality of Education at PISA School, Program for International Student Assessment, the carried out ODE, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Switzerland took the 13th place among 32 countries, and in 2009, 14 among 65. In all four researches, PISA-2000, PISA-2003, PISA-2006 and PISA-2009. The level of training of the Swiss school students was significantly higher than an average on ODE of level. Good results are shown by Switzerland and concerning the higher education. In the international ratings of the best higher education institutions of the world, Switzerland traditionally occupies 9 positions, conceding only to the USA, Canada and Great Britain. The Swiss education by some inhabitants who aren't too possessing information is considered expensive even to the European measures. Meanwhile, training at the state universities of Switzerland is one of the cheapest in the world.
Total number of the population as of 2020 is about 8,667,100 man.
The Swiss women give birth to the first children in the middle age 30.7 years. As of 2021, on average, one female resident of Switzerland has 1.58 children. Age structure of the population: 0-14 years, 15.34%.
Boys 664,255 / girls 625,252.
15-24 years, 10.39%. Men 446,196 / women 426,708. 25-54 years. 42.05%.
Men 1,768,245 / women 1,765,941.
55-64 years. 13. 48%.
Men 569,717 / women 563,482.
65 years or also more senior. 18.73%. Men 699,750 / women 874,448. Indicators for 2020. Middle age. General indicator. 42.7 years. Men. 41.7 years. Women. 43.7 years. Indicators for 2020. The average expected life expectancy. General indicator. 83.03 years. Men. 80.71 years. Women. 85.49 years. As of 2021. The Card of Languages of Switzerland as of January 1, 2021. German. 62%. French. 23%. Italian. 8%. Romansh. 0.5%. Historically, Swiss Confederation developed in the conditions of coexistence of various language, cultural and religious groups. 90% of the population Swisses. From them 1 million people obtained the Swiss citizenship. They have no common language. The largest language group. Germanoswisses. 65%. Then on number go Frankish Emirates. 18%. Italoskirets. 10%. In the country also there live Romansh, they make about 1% of the population. German, French, Italian and Rhaeto-Romanic, national and official languages of the Swiss Confederation. Relationship between the French and German parts of Switzerland is the major factor in development of national history. However, they are far from an ideal. A relationship between the main cultural and language areas of the country since the beginning of the 19th century, when densely populated French-speaking areas were attached to the territory of Switzerland, is characterized by existence of a large number of the conflicts and contradictions to this day. There is even an imagined border between these two cultural and language communities, Rheinische Perhaps, the most sensitive issue in this relationship was the conflict around formation of the new canton of Jura. As of 2019, by estimates of the Union, 2.6 million immigrants and their descendants, or 29.9% of the population of the country lived in Switzerland. Religion in Switzerland for 2019. Catholics. 34.4%. Protestants. 22.5%. Other Christians. 5.7%. Atheists. 29.5%. Muslims. 5.5%. Other religions. 1.6%. According to data of the World Factbook, the structure of the population of Switzerland on religion as of 2019. Catholics minus 34.4%, Protestants minus 22.5%, other Christians minus 5.7%, Muslims minus 5.5%, other religions minus 1.6%, atheists minus 29.5%, there are no data minus 0.8%. The largest Protestant religious organization, the Union of the Swiss Evangelic Churches. Schweizerischer Evangelischer Kirchenbund consists of the following local churches: the Reformed Church Reformiert Kirchen Bern Jura Solothurn, unites Tinglianitz of the cantons of Bern, Solothurn and Jura, is church of the majority in the canton of Bern.
The Evangelic and Reformed Local Church Evangelisch Reformiert Landeskirche des Cantons Zurich, unites Tinglianitz of the canton of Zurich,
is church of the majority in the canton. The Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton Rural Basel. Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche des Kantons Basel-Landschaft. Unites Tinglianitz of the canton of Basel-Land, is church of the majority of the canton. The Evangelic and Reformed Church of City Basel. Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche Baselstadt. Unites Tinglianitz of the canton of Baselstadt, is church of the majority of the canton. Evangelic and Reformed Local Church Evangelisch Reformiert Landeskirche des Kantons Glarus. The Evangelic and Reformed Local Church Evangelisch Reformiert Landeskirche Beider Appenzell, is church of the majority in Appenzell-Ausserrhoden. Evangelic Local Church of the Canton of Evangelisch Landeskirche des Kantons Thurgau. The Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Église Réformée Évangélique du Canton de Neuchâtel, unites Neuchâtel's Calvinists, is church of the majority of the canton. The Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Vaud. Église Évangélique Réformée du Canton de Vaud, unites Calvinists in, is church of the majority of cantons. Others. Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche des Kantons Schaffhausen. The Evangelic and Reformed Local Church of Evangelisch Reformiert Landeskirche Graubünden, unites most of believers in German-speaking areas. The Reformed Local Church Reformiert Landeskirche Aargau, unites most of believers in the western part of the canton. Former Bern, Aargau. Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Striet. Wohlen. Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche des Kantons Striet. Wohlen. The Protestant Church of Geneva. Église Protestante de Genève, unites Calvinists of Geneva. The Free Evangelic Church of Geneva. Église Évangélique Libre de Genève, unites Calvinists of Geneva. Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Fribourg. German Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche des Kantons Freiburg. Église Évangélique Réformée du Canton de Fribourg. Evangelic and Reformed Church of the Canton of Lucerne. German Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche des Kantons Luzern. Evangelic and Reformed Church of Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche Nidwalden. Association of the Evangelic and Reformed Church Communities of the Canton of Verbund der Evangelisch Reformierten Kirchgemeinden des Kantons Obwalden. Evangelic and Reformed Cantonal Church of Evangelisch Reformiert Kantonalkirche Schweiz. Evangelic and Reformed Church in the Canton of Solothurn. Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche im Canton Solothurn. Evangelic and Reformed Local Church of Evangelisch Reformiert Landeskirche Uri. Evangelic and Reformed Church of Evangelisch Reformiert Kirche de Wallace. Evangelic and Reformed Communities of Evangelisch Reformiert Kirchgemeinde des Kantons Zug. Evangelic and Reformed Church. Chiesa Evangelica Riformata nel Ticino. The Evangelical Methodist Church in Switzerland. Evangelisch Methodistische Kirche in der Schweiz. Unites methodologists of all Switzerland. Confessional differences in Switzerland not always coincide with linguistic borders. Among Protestants it is possible to find both French-speaking Calvinists and German-speaking Tinglianists. Part of Lutherans are united in the Union of Evangelical and Lutheran Churches of Switzerland and Liechtenstein. Bund Evangelisch-Lutherischer Kirchen in der Schweiz und im Fürstentum Liechtenstein.
Including
Evangelical Lutheran Church of Geneva, unites Lutherans of Geneva. Evangelical Lutheran Church of Basel and Northeast Switzerland. Evangelisch-Lutherische Kirche Basel and Nordwest Schweiz. Unites Lutherans both Baselia. Evangelical Lutheran Church of Bern. Evangelisch-Lutherische Kirche Bern. Unites Lutherans of Bern. Evangelical Lutheran Church of Zurich. Evangelisch-Lutherische Kirche Zurich. Unites Lutherans of Zurich. Evangelical Lutheran Church of Liechtenstein. Evangelisch-Lutherische Kirche im Fürstentum Liechtenstein. Unites Lutherans of Liechtenstein. There are 5 communities.
in Bern, Basel, Zurich, Medina,
Aargau, and Mentzikena, Aargau. The continental province of the Moravian Church. Europäisch Festländische Provinz der Bruderunität. Mennonites are presented by 13 communities united in the Conference of Mennonites of Switzerland. Konferenz der Mennoniten der Schweiz. Among other Protestant groups, it is necessary to call Adventists, Baptists, Pentecostal Apostolic Church, the Swiss Pentecostal Mission, Salvation Army, etc.
Catholics are presented.
Diocese of Basel, Aargau, both Basel, Bern, Jura, Lucerne, Schaffhausen, Solothurn, Thurgau, Zug. The diocesan region of the Saint Verse, both Basel and Aargau. Most of believers in east part of the canton of Aargau. The former counties Baden and Friamta. Unites. The diocesan region of Saint Verena, Wern, Jura and Solothurn. Unites most of believers of Jura and Solothurn. Diocesan St. Victor's region. Lucerne, Schaffhausen, Thurgau and Zug. Unites most of believers of Lucerne, Schaffhausen and Zug. Diocese of Jura. Graubünden, Glarus, Nidwalden, Obwalden, Uri, Schweiz, Zurich. General Vicariate Graubünden unites most of believers in Italo-Izichny and Rhato-Romanic areas. General Vicariate of Schweiz, Uri, Nidwalden and Obwalden unites most of believers in all 4 cantons. General Vicariate of Zurich and Glarus. The Diocese of Lausanne. Freiburg, Geneva, Neuchâtel and Episcopal Vicariate Freiburg unites most of believers in the canton. Episcopal Vicariate Geneva unites most of believers in the canton. Episcopal Vicariate in Episcopal Vicariate of Neuchâtel. The Diocese of Lugano, Ticino, unites most of believers in the canton. The Diocese of Striet, Wohlen, both Appenzell and Striet. Wohlen unites most of believers in Appenzell and Uerdingen. The Diocese of Siona, Valley, unites most of believers in the canton. All are under direct supervision to the Holy See. The Judaism in Switzerland is presented by the Union of the Swiss Jewish Communities. Schweizerischer Israelitischer Gemeindebund. consisting from Jewish community of Basel, Israelitische Gemeinde Basel, Jewish community of Bern, Jüdische Gemeinde Bern, Jewish community Israelitische Kultusgemeinde Bremgarten, Bern, Jewish community of Biel, Jüdische Gemeinde Biel, Communauté Juive Bien, Jewish community of Solothurn, Jüdische Gemeinde Solothurn, Jewish community of St. Gallen, Jüdische Gemeinde Street, Gallen, Jewish religious community of Israelitische Kultusgemeinde Endingen, Street, Gallen, Jewish community of Winterthur, Israelitische Gemeinde Winterthur, Zurich, Jewish community Agudas Achim, Jüdische Gemeinde Agudas Achim, Zurich, Jewish cult community of Zurich, Israelitische Kultusgemeinde Zurich, Jewish religious community of Zurich, Israelitische Religionsgesellschaft Zurich, Jewish community of Geneva, Communauté Israelite de Genève, Jewish community of Communauté Israelite du Canton de Neuchâtel, Jewish community of Lausanne and Canton of Vaud, Communauté Israelite de Lausanne et du Court de Vaud, Jewish community of Freiburg, Communauté Israelite de Freiburg, Islam. About Kurd Muslims, generally Turks and Kosovars, live in Switzerland. On November 29, 2009, on a national referendum in Switzerland, the amendment to the constitution forbidding construction of minarets in the country was adopted. Besides, in Switzerland, the kosher and halal face of animals counted there insufficiently humane is forbidden. Switzerland has long traditions of apolitical and military neutrality, however takes active part in the international cooperation. In her territory, the headquarters of many international organizations is located. There are several points of view concerning time of emergence of the Swiss neutrality. According to some scientists, Switzerland began to adhere to the status of a neutrality after signing a peace treaty with France on November 29, 1516, in which everlasting peace was proclaimed.
Further, the Swiss authorities made a number of the decisions which advanced the country on the way to definition of the neutrality.
In 1713, the neutrality of Switzerland was recognized by France, Spain, the Netherlands and England, which made the Utrecht Peace.
However, in 1803, Switzerland was forced to sign with Napoleonic France the contract on the military alliance, according to which the country undertook to provide the territory for conducting military operations and also to expose the military contingent for the French army.
On the Vienna Congress in 1815, the eternal neutrality of Switzerland was fixed. Finally, the neutrality was confirmed and concretized by the Guarantee Act signed in Paris on November 20, 1815 by Austria, Great Britain, Portugal, Prussia, Russia and France. On January 22, 1506, the Swiss Guard, designed to protect the head of the Roman Catholic Church in his palace, was based. Total number of the first structure of the Swiss Guard was 150 people. 110 now.
The foreign policy of Switzerland, according to the constitution of this country, is formed taking into account the international legal status of a constant neutrality. It is difficult to connect the beginning of the Swiss policy of a neutrality with any certain date.
The Swiss historian Edgar Bonger about it told, "The concept of the Swiss neutrality arose along with a concept of the Swiss nation. in the 14th century in contracts of the certain cantons which made subsequently the Swiss Confederation with their neighbors. The German term, Stillsitzen, literally, to sit still, is used that approximately corresponds to the latest concept of a neutrality. The constant neutrality of Switzerland resulted from signing of 4 international legal acts. The Act of the Vienna Congress from 8 on March 20, 1815, annexes to the Act of the Vienna Congress No. 90 from 8 on March 20,
1815, Declarations of Powers on Affairs of the Helveticesque Union and the Act concerning recognition and a guarantee of a constant neutrality of Switzerland and inviolability of her territory.
Unlike other countries which chose a similar way only under the influence of external factors, for example as a result of defeat in war, the neutrality of Switzerland was created also for the internal political reasons. A neutrality having become the idea uniting the nation, I promoted the evolution of her statehood from amorphous confederation to decentralized federal structure.
For years of policy of the constant armed neutrality, the Alpine Republic managed to avoid participation in 2 devastating world wars and to strengthen the international authority, including by implementation of numerous intermediary efforts.
The principle of maintenance of communications between the countries, but not between the governments, allowed to conduct dialogue with all, regardless of political or ideological reasons. Switzerland represents the 3rd states where they broke off diplomatic relations.
For example, the interests of the USSR in Iraq in 1955, Great Britain and Argentina during the Anglo-Argentina conflict of 1982. Now Switzerland represents the interests of the USA in Iran, the interests of the Russian Federation in Georgia after severance of diplomatic relations between these countries in 2008.
Switzerland renders good offices, providing the territory for direct negotiations between participants of the conflicts. Nagorno-Karabakh, Abkhazian and the South Ossetia problems, the Cyprian settlement, etc. From all the types of a neutrality existing in the modern world, Swiss, the longest and consecutive.
Today the Swiss Confederation isn't included neither into any military alliance, nor into the EU. In recent years, in connection with changes in Europe and the world, in the government and public opinion, the spirit in favor of strengthening of integration from the EU and more flexible interpretation of the principle of a neutrality gains strength.
In May 2004, the 2nd package of sectoral contracts of the EU, Switzerland, which, together with the 1st package, came into force on June 1, 2002, as some kind of alternative to the entry of Switzerland into the EU is signed. Within the national referenda which took place in 2005. The people of Switzerland positively solved a question of accession of Switzerland to the Schengen and Dublin contracts. The agreement on it with the EU is included into the 2nd package.
And also of distribution of provisions of the contract on freedom of movements between Switzerland and the EU.
Enters the 1st package of sectoral contracts. On new the members of the EU which entered into alliance in 2004.
At the same time, the decision to consider a question of the entry of Switzerland into the European Union not strategic objective as earlier is made but only a political option that is an opportunity.
In 1959 Switzerland became one of East countries founders, in 2002 entered into the Union. The culture of the country developed, on the one hand, under the influence of the German, French and Italian culture and, on the other hand, on the basis of special consciousness of each canton. Therefore, it is still very difficult to tell precisely that it actually the Swiss culture. Switzerland distinguishes the Swiss culture as a rule, folklore, and culture from Switzerland, all available genres in which people work with the Swiss passport. So, for example, associations of the musicians playing on Alpengorn are rather the Swiss culture, and the rock groups, Yellow, Gothard, Crocus, and Semel, is culture from Switzerland.
The bright representative in music, Thilo Wolff and his Lacrimosa group working in a genre, Gothic Fate. In Basel, Zurich, Bern, Lugano, St.
Poland, Geneva, Lausanne, Fribourg and Neufchâtel the universities work. There is no uniform national university in Switzerland. His role is played to some extent by the Higher Technical School in Zurich. VOSS is available also in Lausanne in St. Poland the Higher Economic School works. The network of professional educational institutions is developed. Among students, a considerable part is made by foreigners.
Along with comprehensive schools, there are exclusive private colleges which are highly quoted around the world.
In Switzerland was born the famous sculptor Hermann Göller, who is a founder of modern Swiss plasticity, lived and worked. Swiss painters: Franz Giertz, Johann Ludwig Eberli, Daniel Spory, Frank Buxer, Naval Zeigner, Louis Muley, Nicolas Manuel, Jean Rengli, Thomas Huber, Hans Asper. This set of literary stories is connected with Switzerland. For example, thanks to notes about Sherlock Holmes, the Reichenbachsky Falls are well known not only as the beautiful place, but also as a tomb of Professor Moriarty. The history of Chateau de Chillon inspired Byron on the composition of The Chillonsky Prisoner. Victor Frankenstein, the character of the novel of Mary Shelley of Frankenstein. The modern Prometheus is from Geneva. In Montreux there arrived heroes of the novel of Hemingway of A Farewell to Arms. From the Russian literature, first of all the citizen of the canton Yuri Nikolai Stavrogin, the hero of the novel of Dostoevsky, Demons, is known.
The sea Montreux and Lake Geneva connected the well-known song of the Smoke on the Water Deep Purple group.
We all came out to Montreux, on the Lake Geneva shoreline. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Jeremiah Gotthelf, Madame de Staël, Charles Ferdinand Rameau, etc. Possibly, the most famous work of the Swiss literature is The Story by Heidi. His story of the orphan girl living with the grandfather in the Swiss Alps still remains one of the most popular children's books. It became one of symbols of Switzerland. Her creator, Johann Schepery, 1827-1901. Writer: I wrote also some other books for children. Ski sports and mountaineering are very popular in Switzerland. Such places as Davos, St. Moritz and Zermatt are one of the best ski centers in the world.
As well as in the neighboring Austria, the mountain skiing is one of the most popular.
The Swiss mountain skiers are among the strongest in the world throughout the 20th and 21st century. The Swiss St. Moritz twice, 1928 and 1948, hosted the Winter Olympic Games. Switzerland is the country in which it is ideal to make campaigns. The various landscape guarantees that everyone will find to itself, himself, pedestrian tracks depending on his abilities and desire. There is an extensive network from more than 180 routes. Switzerland is the country of bicycles. Here it is more than just the type of activity, is a healthy way to enjoy the nature. In the country there are 3,300 kilometers of the bicycle routes, ideal for all levels of complexity. The Wellenschweiz project, which was begun in 1998, represents a network of 9 national bicycle routes. The program according to which the bicycle can be hired free of charge under some monetary pledge or the document works in some cities of Switzerland. The landscape of Switzerland faultlessly is suitable for rock climbing. The headquarters of governing bodies of the International Soccer and Hockey, the International Federation of Football Associations, FIFA, an International Ice Hockey Federation, IFF, are located in Zurich. Many other headquarters of the international sports federations is located in Switzerland. For example, the International Olympic Committee, AAC, the Olympic Museum AAC, and the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, are located in Lausanne. The hockey, tennis, winter sports and soccer enjoy wide popularity. The Swiss cuisine deserves recognition at gourmets of the whole world, despite rather strong influence of neighboring countries, Germany, France and Italy. It has many delicacies. One of the main attractions of Switzerland is a chocolate. Switzerland is known not only a cultural and national diversity, but also in a wide choice of dishes of the French, Italian, German cuisine. The Swiss traditional food is based on several fundamental components. The most widespread components of the Swiss cuisine: milk, oil, cheese, potatoes, corn, beet, onions, cabbage, rather small amount of meat and moderately picked up bouquet of aromatic spices and herbs. In spite of the fact that the livestock production in Switzerland is inexpressibly developed, meat still not the frequent guest on a table of Swisses. Characteristic dishes of the Swiss cuisine: fondue, rasht, tartiflette, Wasel brunel, cookies, sausage salad in Swiss, gingerbread in Swiss, Swiss cheese soup, Swiss roll, polenta, raclette, baking, lotus petals, meringues. Chocolate is manufactured in Switzerland since the 18th century, but it gained a reputation at the end of the 19th century with the invention of modern technologies, such as conchirevoni and tempering, that allowed to make it on high level of quality. Also the invention d'Anagel-Peter of firm milk chocolate in 1875 became break. Holidays. In Switzerland, the Day of Saint Berthold is celebrated on January 2. In Geneva, the holiday Escalade is celebrated on December 12. On August 1, the Day of Confederation, a national holiday of Switzerland, is celebrated. This day in all cantons there take place Massachusetts festivities, magnificent salutes are organized. In Zurich in April mark out Schätzesvoni, a peculiar meeting of spring. In the canton of Appenzeller celebrate Old New Year, Silvesterklasse. Business hours of institutions. Institutions in Switzerland work on weekdays from 8 o'clock till 12 o'clock and from 14 o'clock till 17 o'clock. Saturday and Sunday, the days off. The Swiss jars are usually open from 8:30 till 16:30, except days off. Once a week banks work longer than usual, it is necessary to specify it in each concrete place. Offices of mail in the large cities are open on weekdays from 8:30 till 12 o'clock and from 13:30 till 18:30, on Saturday from 7:30 till 11 o'clock, Sunday, the day off. The military budget of Switzerland for 2017-2020 is approved of 20 billion francs. 20.68 billion ADL. The USA. That is about 5 billion francs a year. Regular versus about 100 people. Only personnel structure. Reserve about 240,200 people. Paramilitary forces. Civil defense forces minus guard people. By tradition, Swisses have the right to store a military weapon of the house. Completing. At the call of and on a professional basis. Service life. 18-21 weeks. At the age of 19-20 years. Then 10 courses of retraining for 3 weeks. 20-42. Mob. Resources to 1 million people, including suitable for military service 1.7 million. In Switzerland twice. In 1989 and 2001. Referenda for refusal of regular army were held. Both times the result was negative. Switzerland, despite extreme limitation of her national market, possesses well-developed network of electronic and paper Massachusetts media. Development of the modern newspaper market in Switzerland begins under the influence of the Reformation. In 1610 in Basel there is the first regular Swiss newspaper Ordinary Zeitung. In 1620 newspapers in Zurich begin to appear. One of them, Ordinary Wochenzeitung, is considered the direct predecessor of the unofficial, main newspaper of the country, Neue Zürcher Zeitung. In 1827 in Switzerland there were 27 newspapers. When, after the revolutionary events of 1830, censorship was cancelled, the number of editions began to grow quickly, and by 1857 in Confederation there were already 180 newspapers. The greatest number of newspapers in Switzerland left in the 30th years of the 20th century. More than 400. Then their quantity begins to be reduced, and this process continues still. The first all-Swiss regionally newspaper, Schweizer Zeitung, began to appear in 1842 in the city of St. Gallen. Feature of the Swiss press landscape at the time was the fact of tough ideological division of newspapers. Newspapers of the Catholic and conservative direction were resisted by liberal and progressive editions. In 1893 in Zurich the newspaper Tagesanzeiger, the first above party, and in this sense independent, the newspaper began to appear. In 1850, with formation of the Der Bund newspaper, in Switzerland the first newspaper with the regular professional editorial office appeared. Neue Zürcher Zeitung. In January 2005 she celebrated the 225-year anniversary. Was the first newspaper which founded within edition the specialized departments which were engaged in concrete subjects. Policy, economy, culture, etc. Today, by the number of periodic printing editions per capita, Switzerland is high on the list in the world. Nevertheless, the vast majority of nearly 200 main daily Swiss newspapers, their general circulation, about 3.5 million copies, differ in strongly expressed provincialism and focus mainly on local events. From German-speaking leaders today in Switzerland are the RAG, Blick, 275,000 copies. Leaving in Zurich well-informed Tages-Anzeiger, 259,000 copies. There is a correspondent in Moscow. And Neues Zeitung, 139,000 copies. Among French-speaking are in the lead Boulevard Matin, 187,000 copies. Latin, 97,000 copies. Wang Katerair, 97,000 copies. Tribune de Genève, 65,000 copies. Among Italo-Язычный, Corriere del Ticino, 24,000 copies. Rather noticeable segment of the market, Boulevard free transport newspapers, extend generally at stops of public transport. Take 20 minutes. About 100,000 copies. And Metropole, 130,000 copies. And also the advertising and corporate editions, Kurzeitung, nearly 1.5 million copies. And Verbrachenbar, 1.3 million copies. Information and analytical sections in these newspapers are absent. The majority of large Swiss newspapers of federal importance steadily reduced the official circulations. In 2004, the circulation of the largest Swiss RAG, Blick, was approximately 275,000 copies.
The Informed Der Bund newspaper, appearing in the Bern agglomeration and in some neighboring cities, sells a day slightly more than 60,000 pieces now.
Similarly, also the situation in the market of Sunday newspapers looks. Circulation of the popular newspaper, Sonntagszeitung, dropped for the last 3 years by 8.6% and is 202,000 copies now, and the number of copies of the Sonntagsblick newspaper decreased for the same time up to 312,000 pieces. Could hold the positions only the popular Bern newspaper, Berner Zeitung. Its circulation minus 163,000 copies. And the illustrated magazine of Boulevard Sens Schweizer Illustriert, 255. 7,000 copies. Which is in considerable demand, and it against the background of the fact that the General Information Journal of Switzerland, FECTS, reduced the circulations, having fallen to the level of 80,000 pieces. Such trends are connected, first of all, with the continuing reduction of number of the published advertisements and with growth of popularity of internet press. In July 2007, the FECTS magazine stopped the existence. Adverse conditions for development of media in Switzerland lead not only to reduction of circulations, but also to need to conduct structural reductions. So, in 2003, the Moscow office of the Swiss TV company, Federation cancelled ours. Except the correspondent of the Tages-Anzeiger newspaper, in Moscow there was only a representative of the Swiss, German language, radio, DARS, was closed.
Providing with information from Russia will be conducted now by an example of many Swiss newspapers and Goshri for writing of materials of the Moscow correspondence of newspapers from other German-speaking countries, first of all by Germany.
As for actually Federation Council -1 TV channel, it will receive the Russian picture through the Austrian TV channel ORF now.
The television market of Switzerland is controlled by the Swiss Society of Broadcasting and Television, created in 1931.
German of Schweizerische Radio- und Fernsehgesellschaft SRI. Société Suisse de Radiodiffusion et Télévision sur. Société Svizzera di Radiotelevisione, shorts. Radio and telecasting is conducted in German.
In fact, nearly 80% of German-language television are produced on the dialects very different from literary German.
French and Italian. In the canton of Graubünden, also on Romansh. Languages. Being joint stock company in a form, shorts, nevertheless, as well as many Swiss joint stock educations in other branches of economy, in fact, is the government institution receiving grants from the state. Such subsidizing officially is proved by need to support, obviously unprofitable system of four-lingual national telecasting, especially taking into account that in the territory of Switzerland TV channels of the countries neighboring to her, first of all Germany and also France and Italy freely are accepted. If in 2000 Sir by own efforts earned a profit of 24.5 million francs in 2002, his losses made 4.4 million francs.
To such result brought as an adverse economic situation in the country and lack of advertising and growth of amount of the categories of consumers of a telesignal exempted from a subscription payment.
In this regard, in 2004 the state was forced to allocate for support of Sir more than 30 million francs. The Swiss TV channels of Sir FD and Sir FYD are issued entering into Sir State Sir Shopping Mall. Give prime time, generally to transfers of sports and social and political character, therefore, entertaining requirements, the Swiss TV viewer satisfies the, as a rule, through foreign broadcasters. As for private telecasting, it, unlike private broadcasting, so far also couldn't gain a foothold in Switzerland as a real alternative to the state television. Private TV channels TV. Switzerland. Via Tele24, which when there were nearly 3% of the Swiss TV viewers, didn't manage to reach the level of market self-sufficiency in their work, were in 2002 stopped. At the beginning of November 2003 in Switzerland, one more attempt to adjust private television started. Federal Council. The government of the country granted the corresponding license to UTV channel. TV channel. D. The license is granted for 10 years and grants the right for national broadcast of German language programs. By the beginning of 2005, the channel didn't manage to win a little noticeable niche in the market of the Swiss electronic media. The reason that Switzerland still remains the market, very complex for private broadcasters, consists first of all in adverse frame legislative conditions. Rather small percent of the advertising placed on television of Switzerland is other reason. If in Germany on TV nearly 45% of all advertising in the country are placed, then in Switzerland this figure makes only 18.1%. 43% of all volume of advertising in Confederation are the share of newspapers. Now the Swiss law on TV and radio broadcasting of June 21, 1991 goes through an improvement stage. his new version has to give more opportunities for private activity in the sphere of television and radio, first of all in respect of attraction of additional advertising. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.